Hello all. I am going to spend some time today showing you how to set up a drawing that can be used to create this beautiful watercolor here, which of course is a copy of the watercolor created by fictional character Pam Beesly from The Office. This is her watercolor she created for the art show. And she created this using two-point perspective, which is what we're going to be using to create our own version of this image. This is our inspiration image, so we'll circle back to it periodically. But the very first thing we need to do in order to make this work is to establish a horizon line. For this, I'm going to be using a straight edge, which is 18 inches long, and my T-square here, which is only 12 inches long. But the most important part of it is that it helps me make sure that I can get verticals and horizontals that are true. And I do that by lining it up with the edge of the page. So lining up at the bottom of the page here means I'm going to have a true vertical. If I line it up with the side of the page, I'm going to have a true horizontal. So for my horizon line, I am going to measure up to right about 3.5 inches, make a little mark. And then I'm going to use my T-square on the right side to give me this horizontal line, and I'm drawing a really light line here. Hopefully you can just barely see it. That is on purpose. And because my paper is wider than my T-square, I'm just going to flip that around. And I'm going to draw really light here because part of this will go away once I establish the location of the building. So with two-point perspective, we need two vanishing points, and those are going to be located on the far left and the far right side of our page. So the next thing we need to do is establish where to place the verticals. We're going to start on the right side here that represent the corners of the building. And so I'm going to line my T up with the right-hand side. I'm going to measure in from the right side. I'm going to make a small mark at 1 inch. And I'm going to make a small mark at 2 3/4 inch. And those are going to represent the edges of that shorter wall. Now for this next step, I'm going to line up my T with the bottom of my paper, and I'm going to make sure that the edge that measures inches is along that mark that I made here at 2 3/4, because I am going to measure this line. I'm going to start the line at 8 1/4 inch, or 8 1/4, and I'm going to draw all the way down to 3 inches. So if I've done everything correctly so far, my line should go well above the horizon line and just slightly below the horizon line. I'm going to do that same thing again with this other mark, only I'm not going to measure this time. I'm just going to make it a couple inches long. Again, well above and slightly below the horizon line. Now I need my vanishing point. That's the one on the right-hand side here. I'm going to line up to it and to the highest point of that vertical and connect the two. This line that connects to the vanishing point is called an orthogonal line. An orthogonal line. And so part of that line I didn't need, I just erased it. And then I'm going to come over here to the right-hand vanishing point, go to the bottom of the taller of the two verticals, and connect those two orthogonals. Now this is a building, which means inside of that space I no longer need a horizon line. Okay, that is the first side of my building. Now I'm going to set that T-square aside because I need a longer ruler, longer straight edge here. If I had a longer T-square that would work, but I'm just going to grab my 18-inch ruler here, line it up with the top of that vertical. This time I'm going to line up to the far left-hand vanishing point. And I'm going to draw really lightly here, just about halfway back, so half the distance between the edge of the paper and where I'm starting, because that building doesn't go on forever. Now, same thing here, just about halfway back, and I'm really going light on my pressure here. I'm not pushing down at all. I don't want a dark, heavy ridge. I don't want to be able to feel an indentation in the paper. All right, setting that long straight edge aside, I'm going to grab my T-square again. This time I'm measuring over from the left side. And I'm going to make a mark at about 6.5 inches. These are some approximations just to put us in the right ballpark of the inspiration image. I just lined up to that mark. Again, it was 6.5 inches over from the left-hand side. And now I'm just going to connect those two orthogonals with a vertical line. The part of the orthogonals I don't need, I can now erase. And the part of the horizon line I don't need, I can now erase. So that is my basic setup. And now I can add a few other details here. If you notice in the inspiration image, the building is kind of divided up into thirds. The top third above the windows, the middle third is where the windows are located, and the bottom third is where it's just a textured wall. And so my far edge of my building here measures just a little over 3 inches. So what I'm going to do, actually, sorry, just a little under 3 inches. I'm going to measure up 1 inch from the bottom, and I'm going to measure down 1 inch from the top. And what that's going to do is actually going to leave me with that middle space being slightly smaller than the other two, which I think is appropriate for this inspiration image. That middle section seems to be just a little bit narrower than the other two. So again, this is slightly less than 3 inches. I measured down 1 inch from the top, I measured up 1 inch from the bottom, and that's gonna give me just that middle section being slightly smaller than the others. I'm gonna need that long straight edge again, and I'm gonna line up to those marks I just made and to my left hand vanishing point. I'm not connecting those though. I'm gonna just line up with that mark and then shoot away from the vanishing point towards the corner of the building. And then I'll do that same thing again. Again, still lined up with that left-hand vanishing point and stopping at that far vertical line. Okay, now I only have to make that measurement once. I just continue that around because now from this corner, I'm gonna kind of switch directions, lining up to the right-hand vanishing point, lining up to right where it intersects there at that corner. Okay, and now I have divided that space up into 3 approximately equal parts. Now, when you're working on the left-hand side here, really keep your lines light because a lot of that's going to be overlapped by the trees, as you can see in the picture here. So we still want to establish where those lines are going to be, but we don't want to commit too much to them. All right, so what I want you to notice next is these stripes that run kind of along the top edge and then between each of these thirds. And that's what we're going to do next. And this is one of those times where we're not really going to measure, but we are going to use our vanishing point. So we're lined up on the left. We're going to drop down from the corner just 1/8 of an inch or so. I'm going to do the same thing in my next section down. And one thing I'm going to do differently this time, instead of dropping below this line, I'm going to draw above this line because again I want to make this my smallest section. So this time I'm going to line up with the bottom of the ruler so that I can kind of see where I'm at a little bit easier. Okay, left side's looking good. Now we got to do that on the right. So my trick here, put your pencil where you want that line to begin, and then you only have to adjust one end of the ruler at a time, which makes it just a little easier to manage. In my opinion. All right, that's looking pretty good. We've got our 3 sections there. We've got our horizon line. That's gonna put us in a good position to continue working on this drawing.